everyone, it's Lori Theriel from Work It, and I'm here today recording podcast number 19. Sorry about that. And we are here today with City and our interviewer, Richard Thomas, meteorologist 2025, is still here for the summer interviewing some guests, and he's having a blast. So today he gets to interview a young lady named City, and she will be talking about international study. So it's a cool topic for those international students out there. Visit workitcareers.com for more information on how you can find your ideal career path. And I'm going to turn it over to Richard Thomas.
Hi everyone, Richard Thomas, meteorologist 2025. You already know. Today I'm going to be interviewing my friend that I met from the Walsh Summer Work Experience program, City. City, I know you've been on 4 different continents, so that's going to be a big topic that we're talking about today. So, you want to go off and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Siddhi. Where do I even begin? I mean, the question, where are you from, always stumps me. So let me start from the beginning. I was born in California. I lived there for 5 years, and then I went back to India. I've lived in Qatar, which is in the Middle East. I've lived in Ghana, which is in West Africa. Then I moved to a small island called Mauritius, which is off the coast of Madagascar, for those of you who don't know, or it's in the Indian Ocean. And I recently moved to Bristol, Connecticut last year in August, and I came to finish my last year of high school and start my journey as a university student at Southern Connecticut University.
Okay, well, that's a lot. I haven't been further than New York, so that's a lot taken. You're going to university soon, so what are you going to be studying?
So I'm gonna be a computer science major, and I'm also thinking about math, but we all know how math is horrible, so that's an if or but, so we'll see where that goes.
Right. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the different schooling systems. You've been in an American schooling system, Indian, IGCSE, and British schooling system. I've only been an American, so that's what we're going to be talking about. I have a bunch of questions for you. And my first one being is some major differences right off the top of your head from you could do two and I'll do American.
Okay.
So let's start off with class selection. Let me hear about the Indian class selection difference.
Okay, so usually the Indian system is split off into 3 different groups of interests. So you have the arts for the more creative people, I guess. And then you have commerce, which is for the more business sided individuals. And then you have science, which is for more, you know, obviously engineering, and then people who want to go into bio or chem or physics. And then, so you're split off into these 3 groups pretty early off. I remember that I had to pick whether I wanted to be in science, commerce, or arts when I was in the 8th grade, and it was a pretty tough decision for me, but I kind of knew what I wanted to do from a very young age, so that was pretty easy. So yeah, and then as for the British, you have a list of subjects that you want to pick or what you want to pursue after a certain point of time. So you just select it, and then you have to give these big exams, which we'll obviously talk about later. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, for the American school system, I mean, in the earlier years, elementary, middle school, the classes are very mandatory. You don't really have that much selection. Basic classes, history, LA, which is English, science, and math. No one likes math. But yeah, once you get to high school, there's a lot more selections. Still not as much as other schools' systems, but you still get more variety and choices. So
Oh yeah,
so
you definitely start selecting more subjects as you progress through school. It's not like when you're in 6th grade you have to pick or anything. It's like when you're kind of towards the end of middle school and entering high school, that's when you pick more subjects. That's what I've noticed in both the Indian and the British schooling systems.
right, right. So you started off in what schooling system?
I
Sorry.
started so I started off in the American, but that was like when I was really really young, so I don't remember much of it.
Okay.
And then I did Indian briefly for like a few years off and on, and then I mainly did the British, which I feel like that took up most of my
Okay,
schooling
so
experience.
you've been moving around a lot. You've been making a lot of friends, right?
a lot of changes.
So you're used to change? Like, tell me your experience with that.
I love change. I feel like it's my best friend. It's just something that comes very naturally to me. I embrace it. So I'm not really scared of like moving from one place to another, or possibly even moving one school to another, one job to another. You get the picture. So I guess it's because I've grown up in that environment. Like my dad would just come home and be like, "Oh, I got a new job somewhere else. We have to move in like 2 weeks time."
Now, would you be excited about that?
I was excited when I was younger, but I think I hit a point when I was in Ghana and I'd found a really good school that I really, really liked. I'd found a good group of friends and I was like, oh, I don't want to go. Like, and they had boarding school too, so I was like trying to convince him to let me go and stay there. But he was like, no, you have to come. But I'm glad that like he forced me to come. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met half the people in Mauritius. But yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely like the fast-paced life. That's for me.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy that you ended up here and we met. Like, I
I
don't even know.
know.
What are the chances of that?
In gym class too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my next question about the difference in the schooling systems is promotion to another class, like graduation, and or maybe just sixth grade to seventh grade to eighth grade. I know in the American systems, all you have to do is pass class. You do good on your test. You hand in all your homework, or most of it at least, and you get above a 65, I believe.
Yeah.
You pass and you go on to the next grade.
Yeah, so both the Indian and the British system have something in common where you're only promoted from one class to another based on how you perform on the end of term exams or the end of the school year exams. So as long as you get a percentage that's above 60% usually for each exam that you have to take, you basically are promoted. Yeah, like you
Mhm.
wouldn't want to be in the 60%. That's usually frowned upon.
Yeah. I
Like,
bet.
yeah, nobody wants to get a 60, but some people can help it. Yeah, so it's purely based on exams, like nothing else. So that's
Mhm.
something that really surprised me when I came to the US. I was kind of expecting it because I'd read about it a lot. But that's something that I think is good because it encourages kids to, I'm talking about the American here, like submit homework, classwork. It kind of keeps them up on their schoolwork. So that's a good system. I definitely prefer the American over the other two.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. In terms of, I guess, flexibility, you have a lot more. Whereas the British and the Indian, I
You
don't
mess up
think.
once and
Yeah,
you stay
it's
there.
like you have to skip, or not skip, but you have to redo the entire year, which is
That's
so so much work.
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm hearing. I cannot
Yeah,
redo
like
grades. That would be so
imagine
hard.
it's all based on one exam. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's we have so it's not 2 semesters, but we have 3 terms usually.
Mhm.
So and the school year depends as well from which country you're in and all of that. I'm not gonna get into that right now because
So
that's complex.
yeah. Okay. So do you have grades?
Yeah, we have grades. So some schools they have like a mixture of like percentages. They have like the A's and B's, your classic, you know.
Now, will that mix in with the big test that decides whether you stay back or not?
Yeah, so usually on the report cards, it's only the big exams that's shown. You don't like
Okay.
really see the smaller tests. The smaller class tests and stuff, or like quizzes you would
So
call, aren't really counted. They're
mhm.
just like to see how you're performing in class. And
Okay.
they like even homework and stuff, like they grade it. They
Mhm.
grade it, but you don't get credit for it.
So
That's the
it's
difference.
all up to that big final at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably fail all of them.
That's it. Like you don't get any credit for anything else, which really sucks because there are some kids who do every single piece of homework
I'm just flunk.
and they flunk the exam. So it's like they do so well in class and when they do homework, like they get good grades doing that, but they do so horribly in exams. I don't know, it's probably like the pressure from the family or whatever, but
Right.
they just do so horribly they have to repeat, which sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to have like a mixture. It's like 70-30 or like 50-50 at
Right.
least. It gives the person a chance to, move forward. Like why hold them back just based on one single sheet of prefer.
So you definitely agree with the American version?
Yeah, I like the grading system. It's very good. In terms of difficulty and material covered, I definitely like the Indian and the British.
Okay.
It's more detailed, more in depth. It's something for the more studious people or the ones who are very serious about their education, the ones who want to learn more or generally encouraged to learn more. So I found myself enjoying learning stuff that was more advanced for my level. That's I like to challenge myself, so
Mhm.
that's something I like to do.
Right.
So yeah, also like that the fact that the American system has different levels. Like you have academic, you have
Yes.
accelerated, then you
They
have
don't have that in.
they don't have that. It's all one single class. If there's a slow-paced learner, like they're screwed. They're literally struggling. So
And
they
it-
have to take external tuitions to like catch up.
Right. But would it hurt the fast-paced learners if the teacher needs to slow down for the slow-paced?
Exactly, that's what happens,
Yeah.
right? So they have to kind of be in the middle, and you're also in a specific time constraint. Like the teachers have to work with a specific deadline too. So you kind of know, oh, in March we have to cover these topics. If we don't, then we're kind of lagging behind because there are sometimes you have to give the exams they're already made. So you have to like teach everyone the material. Otherwise, your students can't take the exam,
Mm-hmm.
which would suck in terms of the teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. My next question is simply physical education.
Oh, don't get me started.
In America, it's well, at least in Connecticut, it's mandatory for me at my school half the year, so one semester mandatory. You have to do gym. You have to do the mile. What, 3 times?
Yeah,
2 times?
3 times.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's very a pain in the butt.
It is. I agree.
So let me hear the difference between physical education.
So I can't say much about the Indian one because I was only there when I was in like middle school, so I can't say much about the high school experience, but I'm sure I can find out more details for those of you who need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have physical education. It's just you're not graded for it. You don't get credit for it usually, but there are obviously exceptions like schools that do give you credit and grade for it.
Right.
Yeah, and then as for the British, the schools that I attended, they generally didn't like give any grades for it. It's
Mm.
just kind of an another classroom activity for you.
But was it
Yeah.
mandatory or not?
Yeah, it was
It was,
mandatory.
okay.
Like you have to take
Did
it.
you have to do the mile 3 times?
No, you don't have to do the mile, thank God.
Right.
That was the best life. No, like usually they'll have like these different like we had those aerobics or whatever, those classes,
Mhm.
right? Even in gym, like you get to pick whether you want to do basketball or go do yoga. So it's like that, except
Right.
with sports. So you can go do football, or as you Americans call it, soccer, or basketball, volleyball. You have the basic sports. So people would generally like split off into different groups. It's usually boys and then girls. So
Definitely, yeah.
they'll be like, oh, this unit we're doing basketball, so everyone's gonna get like basics in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they kind of just progress it throughout the years. And I wasn't in a school long enough to experience everything at once. I'm pretty sure I could have like played proper sports
Mm-hmm.
if I had stayed.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of giving you like an all-rounder space in sports, which is nice.
Yeah, I bet.
But I hate them. I honestly hate
Yeah,
it.
me too.
I just don't know.
So this question is actually kind of random. Who's got the best lunch?
So for the Indian school system, we have to bring our own lunch. So usually, like I remember my mom packing my lunch in the morning, and then I
Yeah.
just take it. But the British, I'm not sure. I never studied in the UK. It's just that their system is so widespread. So many different countries use it as well.
Right.
For instance, Mauritius, like even the state schools, like the public schools, they use the British system,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy. Like I've
Yeah.
never lived in a country where like the entire country runs on the British educational
Yeah.
system. Usually they have their own system and then they're following
But
it,
the
and
whole
it's like
thing-
the private schools that have like the for the posh
Yes,
people.
yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so Mauritius they didn't provide lunch either.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
So-
all I remember is in Ghana. I think I was in the 3rd grade. That's one school that provided, and then there were actually two schools that provided lunches, but you have to pay like for it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like you can get subsidized or lowered. Yeah,
Uh-huh. That's only in like America.
Yeah.
That you've
which is
been to so far.
good because people who can afford to eat, like at least can get a meal at
Right.
school.
All right. Next question is college applications. And I also wanted to know how many colleges can you apply to in the different school systems? Because I know America, you can apply to as many as you want. I mean, I know it costs money for college applications, so that wouldn't be very bright, but let me hear the difference.
Yeah, so for the American, definitely like you have to pay for the, I mean, I think it's for all universities. You have at least a standard application fee and it's unlimited in the US, but in the Indian one, you can apply to as many as you want again. But again, most of the universities, or at least some of them, you have to give an entrance exam. So based on that, you get admission, and then based on your end of your high school career, like the grade that you got, the finishing grade, so that's how you get admission into the various universities. And as for the British universities, like the ones in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
you can, from what I've heard, you can only apply to 5 of them. I've had friends who like, oh, I could only apply to 5. I'm like, I had to apply to 10 and I still wasn't confident that I'll get into any. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in the UK you can apply to 5. That scares me. That
Yeah,
scares me so much
you have to be very
because
selective and picky.
yeah, and you have to make sure that you have at least 2 or 3 of them that you know for sure that you're getting in.
What if you get declined for all?
Well, your choices were terrible then.
Okay.
Because if you're going for all the schools that are very high end, that you know that you don't have the right requirements for, then why even bother applying? Because you know you're not going to get in. Second of all, you might not get enough financial aid. Third of all, if you get rejected from all 5 schools, like what are you going to do?
Yeah.
When can you apply next? You probably have to wait another school year just to apply.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
a really pain.
So I have friends who are going to the UK to study, and they said that they applied to like maybe one university that was higher up,
Higher.
and then the rest they kind of did in their own niche, so that it's, you know,
More for them.
they
Yeah.
had like confidence that they would get in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking about college and getting in, I know in America, if you have a good SAT score, colleges dig that. They like that.
Hmm.
So is that the same?
So if you're applying to a US university, you do need the SAT
Mhm.
or the ACT.
Or the ACT? Yeah.
Yeah. For the Indian and the UK, usually no.
No.
For the British one, they don't use SATs, or they don't have a
Mhm.
standardized test. For the British universities, you do get admission based on your A level grades. So I'll explain more about that soon.
Okay, now.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I go any further, in the British system, you have 13 grades, not 12, but 13.
Okay.
So you have grade 12 and grade 13. So we have two different sets of exams that are really, really important in any student's career who is in the British system. They have, which is the O levels and the A levels, or the GCSEs, which is commonly what they call it in the UK. So in the 11th in the 10th and 11th grade is when you give the O level. So it's basically a curriculum that's broken up into 2 years, spread across 2 years time. So you cover the topics in 2 years time.
Mhm.
And usually the first year they cover the basics that you need to know, and the second year they'll kind of build up off of what you've learned for the first year. So you get your O level grades whenever they have 2 different cycles. So you give the exams either May, June, or you give it October, November.
Mhm.
And then based on that, obviously you're either promoted or you have to repeat and then give the exams again, which was honestly super stressful. I
Yeah, I
hated that
bet.
time. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
I saw the schedule and I was like, oh my God, I have to give so many exams. Because, okay, for example, you have to give a bio paper. You have 3 papers for bio. You
Wow.
have 1 paper just for multiple choice, which is like 40 questions you have to answer in 30 minutes.
Oh,
Then you
dang.
have a second paper, which I'm not sure which paper it is again. I forgot. It's
It's
been a
okay.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have another paper which is just the theory. So you just, it's like short answers, and you have long answers. You have like essay questions. Usually it's no, actually MCQ is 1 hour. I
MCQ.
standing, yeah, yeah. And the second paper, yeah, you have a specific amount of time. And then you have a third paper, which is usually, it depends on the school as well. You can either have a practical or you have the alternate to practical. So you have to know like the labs and stuff that you do. This is for the three sciences
Mm-hmm.
mainly I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And then it varies from subject to subject. Like for math, you would have two papers, which is like calculator and no calculator. So stuff like that. And then once you're promoted, hope to God you do,
Yeah.
you have the A levels, which is so much more complex. I did that for 6 months and I absolutely hated it. It was horrible, don't even ask. Yeah, so you kind of narrow down your subjects as well because you've already, so say for the O levels, you did 7 subjects, which is what I did. Some
Mhm.
schools you have to take 8. You narrow it down to like 4 or 5 of them, and then you go on from there for university. Obviously, because you're kind of narrowing it down, so it's easier for you to like select what you want to do in university. So A level is the same thing. It's a 2-year syllabus that's spread out,
Mm-hmm.
so you kind of do the basics first year and then you go more in depth the second year, and then you give the big exams at the end of your school year based on where you live.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
really a lot.
And that's when you know that you graduate. And then based on your A level grades is how you get into the universities in the UK. So most of my friends who want to study in the UK, they fingers crossed they get in.
Yeah, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. All right, so last question for you. Actually, it's not even a question. It's advice for other international students because I know when I had to change schools, it was really tough for me, and that was maybe a few towns over. For international students, but yeah, it's international, so give them some advice because not everyone's gonna be liking change like you.
Yeah, so first of all, where did you change from? Which
This is
school?
about you, City.
Okay. So I think, let me be honest, okay? I did not enjoy my time very much in both the Indian and the British school systems. I liked the material that I was taught, yes, but I wasn't very happy that I was only being promoted based on how well I do on an exam.
Hmm.
So don't get disheartened if you don't do well on an exam. Like it's not the end of the world. I know not everyone has the same flexibility or the privilege of having a family that can move around from one place to another if something doesn't work out.
Right.
Like thankfully I had that, that to fall back on. And yeah, so just stay focused, just keep working. I was terrible at math. I used to hate it, especially with the amount of pressure that I faced from family as well and myself. I have very high standards for myself.
You're right.
So math and science was something that I had to do really well on. Otherwise I'd be so upset. Like I'll
Hmm.
be upset until I get a 90 at least.
Hmm.
So math was something I was really bad at, but I had a few teachers that I really enjoyed working with along the way. So they kind of taught me the basics,
So
and
definitely find a mentor. Someone
they,
that can
yeah,
help.
a mentor is so helpful. Some people don't even know it. And just keep doing what you're doing. You're
Don't give up.
Yeah, you're gonna get to wherever you're gonna go. I never thought I would actually come back to the US and have the opportunity to study in university over here. Like it was something that I'd always been telling my mom and my dad. I was like, I'm gonna come back to the US, I'm gonna study in the East Coast. Like it's gonna happen. I didn't know where I was going, but now I'm here, gonna be a Southern freshie.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
And yeah, so that's all. Thank you so much for letting me interview you, and your responses were great, and
It's been a
everyone's proud of
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep, of course.